My name is Daniel Ramjattan. I'm a classical guitarist based out of Toronto, and I'm currently teaching and performing while pursuing a DMA at the University of Toronto. I wanted to start a YouTube series that allows me to have a platform to talk about some of the things I have learned and I'm still learning on the classical guitar in my journey so that I can share them with you. I plan to post these videos at least once a month, and if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Now, for my first video in this series, I wanted to keep it pretty basic. In my teaching experience, I use a lot more time than I like to in lessons talking about the following points below, even with my more advanced students. When they're really super basic elements of learning the guitar. If you follow these concepts carefully in your practice, you can make the most out of your lesson time with your teacher without having to focus on all these little points. You can just get straight to the music. So here it goes. These are 10 things your classical guitar teacher hates reminding you about. Point number 1, play on the edge of the fret. This point is so important that I probably end up saying it more than anything else in the lesson times I have with my students. I spend a lot of time talking about being able to play right on the same place each time when I'm playing the guitar. That means that when I'm practicing, I'm establishing a habit of teaching my fingers exactly where they need to be. Now, since we're not violinists or cellists or double bass players or violists, we don't have a sense of tuning on the guitar, which means that when we're playing, we don't have a specific place where the note is supposed to be. Because this place isn't as specific for guitar, we have some freedom on these frets. But when we're performing, allowing ourselves the freedom to go anywhere we want on the fret not only disrupts our tuning as a player, but actually teaches us that there's a radius of movement that we have that can happen anywhere. So if you're in a nervous situation and you're playing, that means that you might be playing here, or you might be playing here, or here, or here, or here. Whereas if you practice in exactly the same place, you will only play on one fret in exactly the same place. And let's say you're nervous and 100 people are watching you, maybe you'll be over here, but you won't be over here. You won't be over here. So practicing on the edge of the fret establishes the strongest habits in your fretting hand, and it's very, very important that you establish these. So really work on that. So the second point is playing on the fingertips. This is very, very important because it reinforces what we're doing in the last section. So not only are we playing the edge of the fret now, but we're playing on the fingertip. What do I mean by playing on the fingertip? I don't mean playing on the pad of the finger, which is over here, or playing over here. I mean playing exactly on the fingertip. That's right below where the nail bed ends. So we want to have the string go right through our fingers. Now, the problem with this is that when you teach it to young students or people who are just beginning, it kind of stings. And although there are a lot of pain that you experience as a classical guitarist, wrist injuries, things like that, it can be very, very dangerous. And whenever you experience them, you should stop when you're playing. When you have yourself playing on the fingertips, it will sting, but it will not injure you. In fact, if you do it for long enough, you will build up calluses. And those will allow you to not feel pain anymore. Calluses are flaps of dead skin that grow on top of your fingers. And they allow you to gradually condition yourself to not feel the pain when you're playing. So this is very, very helpful. And if you combine this with playing on the edge of the fret, your scales will improve, everything will start to improve when you're playing. So number 3 is don't squeeze the fretboard with your thumb. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have watched pop musicians and all kinds of your favorite musicians play guitar like this. With their thumb all the way at the back, like this. Okay? This is not a helpful way to play guitar. In fact, I'm going to bust a myth right now. Everyone thinks that your hand is supposed to be like a lobster, squeezing with both sides on the fretboard. But that's not true at all. In fact, your fingers should do all of the work. Your thumb is only there to stabilize your hand. It's like a fulcrum in a lever. That means that when you're playing, you shouldn't actually have it resisting the push of the fingers. So the fingers do all the work, and if they go directly on the edge of the fret, straight down on the fingertips, then you actually have enough leverage, pretty much as any type of strength type person, to be able to push the guitar all the way back. If you can push the guitar all the way back, and in your practice you can actually push it back like this, then you'll generate enough strength. See, I'm not using my thumb. You'll generate enough strength to actually control your guitar. So if you see my thumb is in the back here, it's in the middle of the position. If I'm in first position, that's in line with my second finger, and it's completely relaxed. Okay? So relaxing the thumb will not only make you play with less tension, but it'll make you stronger. So on to the next point. So my fourth point is talking about mid-range of motion. Don't pluck the strings upward. Go down and through the strings using mid-range of motion. So this is very, very difficult to explain to early students, because if you take any human being and you give them a plane like this, and you say, play the string, everyone, almost everyone, will go like this. Seems natural, right? Now try doing that 100 times accurately. Even if you're close to the strings, you end up doing that. You end up making your hand tense, and it creates a lot of pain in your hand. So the whole goal of this is something that Aaron Shearer first devised not too long ago. And the whole goal is to make the wrist stationary. So the wrist doesn't really move. The arm only moves when we are switching to different tone colors. And what ends up happening is the finger goes into the string like this. So we have 3 different joints in our fingers. We have 1, 2, 3 joints, okay? So the first joint here is, it can allow us to have a lot of strength when we're playing, but if we use it all the time, it takes too much effort. This joint, moving from there, will just be very difficult to do. If you can move from that place, I'm very impressed. But this mid-range of motion, the middle joint, is actually very easy to move from. So you can practice when you're at home doing this exercise. Going in with the first index finger, and then out again. So in, and as you can see, all of my fingers are on a plane. They're all straight, and they're all moving from the second joint. This is something I didn't do for a very long time in my practice, and it really, really benefited my playing. Now, how do we apply that when we're playing? We actually allow ourselves to place our hands on the strings and move like this. You know you're doing it right when your wrist doesn't move at all. So the whole goal of this is take the bounce out of your playing. It'll make you more accurate, make you feel more comfortable with difficult scale passages, especially arpeggio sections, and it will greatly allow you to play with more ease and comfort on your plucking hand. So going back to the fretting hand again, and notice I use fretting hand and plucking hand. That's because I'm left-handed. I think it's much easier to explain. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is curving the wrist while holding the fretboard. That's doing this. This creates a lot of problems when we're playing. If we do this, what ends up happening is the hand becomes much more stressed out. What actually happens is these tendons wrap around the hand and generate a lot of stress. There's a lot, they're being pulled and yanked essentially by your hand. So doing that in progressively difficult positions will actually cause you to have an injury very, very fast. If you have very, very strong hands and it hasn't happened yet, you've been doing it for a long time, an injury is probably still coming. I'm very lucky. I did this for a long time, and I had to take this out of my playing, And when I did, I just noticed I played with so much more ease, and I have way less pain when I'm playing now. So the whole goal is to actually make this hand and wrist move on a straight line. So that requires you to do a few things. You may find that you need to adjust your posture. You may find you need to adjust your footstool if that's what you use, or whatever contraption you use to hold the guitar. And you can use your elbow more when you're moving. So if you find that your hand ends up like this, well, all you need to do is bring your elbow back toward your ribs, a little further back in that direction, and you'll actually feel that push. As long as you keep your shoulders relaxed, there's nothing wrong with using that bigger muscle group. So allow yourself to practice more and more. Do your scales. Just keeping the wrist totally straight. Just watch the wrist and notice how my elbow is moving. That's totally fine as long as my wrist stretches, because moving the elbow is no problem at all for the body. Moving the arm is no problem for the body. But moving this wrist like this for a very long time is very, very stressful on the hand. So really that's the fifth most important thing. So it's really, really important that you really work on all of these. So thanks everyone. That's 5 different things that your guitar teacher hates reminding you about. If there's anything I left out, I'm sure there's a ton of things about posture and other things that are really an entire other video's worth of material that I've left out. So if there's anything you find that you have questions with, or you want to dispute even, just leave it in the comments below, and I'd be happy to respond. Like and subscribe. I'm not at the end of my journey by any sense of the word, so I'm always open to new suggestions. And thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you like it, like and subscribe. Thank you so much.